Everyone called him the Water King. No matter how late it got, he always delivered the final order. At the station, many young riders knew him. While others sat down to rest, he was still on the road. Some would joke, "Master Zhao, you're the hardest working one again." He said nothing, only lowered his head and glanced at the new order that popped up. Late at night, he finally dragged his tired body back home. Before dawn, he put on his uniform again and got ready to head out. The city had not fully woken up yet, but his headlight was already on. No one imagined that this would be his last day. A little after 5 in the morning, before the alarm even rang, he was already awake. He washed his face, drank some water, and on the table there was only a cold steam bun left. He put on his uniform and fastened the old helmet again. The hallway was quiet, and he gently closed the door behind him. As soon as the e-bike started, its headlight cut through the morning mist. The breakfast shop had just opened, and steam was already rising from the bamboo baskets. Anna handed him the first order and nodded like he was greeting an old acquaintance. His phone screen lit up again, and new orders kept popping up one after another. The morning crowd began to flood the streets, and he rode forward against the flow. When the first breakfast was delivered, he said the same line as always, "Your order has arrived." New orders kept flashing across his phone screen, one after another. He rode while keeping his eyes fixed on the route in the navigation app. At the red light, he stared at the countdown, growing more and more anxious. On the other end of the phone, the customer urged him, "How much longer?" In the old residential building there was no elevator, so he could only carry the meal upstairs. Malls, elevators, back doors, floors. He searched for the address again and again. Some people took the food without even lifting their heads. Others frowned and asked, "Why are you so slow?" Master Zhao lowered his head and could only say softly, "I'm sorry." He had just finished this delivery when his phone rang again. At noon, the commercial district exploded with orders, and the station entrance was packed with riders. The younger riders were so tired that they sat by the roadside, too exhausted even to wear their helmets properly. While others were resting, Master Zhao was still picking up orders. While others were eating, he stood by his scooter checking the next route. One young rider could not help saying, "Master Zhao can really run." Another replied, "He always works until the very end of the day." Little by little, everyone privately started calling him the Water King. With bags full of takeout in his hands, he pushed through the crowd once again. The blazing sun shone on his tanned face as sweat ran down the lines of his wrinkles. He took only one sip of water, and the next second he was ready to set off again. During a brief lull at noon, he leaned against his scooter and glanced at his phone. On the screen were a few messages from his family. One said, "We still need money at home this month." Another reminded him, "The elderly and the children are still waiting on your support." After reading the messages, he stayed silent for a long time. In the end, he said nothing and only switched back to the order taking page. His old helmet, old gloves, and old e-bike had been with him on this road for a very long time. Someone at the station said, "At your age, and you're still pushing yourself this hard." He only gave a faint smile and said, "The family needs the money." The words were light, yet they seemed to carry the weight of his whole life. The afternoon sun slowly tilted westward, but the street did not empty out at all. Master Zhao rode on in silence, his expression growing heavier and quieter. While waiting at a red light, he lowered his head, as if suddenly losing focus. He raised a hand to rub his neck. His exhaustion could no longer be hidden. Traffic streamed past him again and again, while he simply waited in silence. His final alert sounded again, and he lowered his eyes to take a look. The evening rush was coming, and new orders started pouring in again. Even the younger riders at the station began complaining, "There are way too many today." Master Zhou said nothing and quietly steadied his e-bike again. He rode back into the traffic, as if the city itself were pushing him forward. The evening rush arrived, and the entrance of the mall was packed with riders waiting for food. The restaurant was very slow to prepare orders, and more people crowded around the pickup counter. Master Zhou stood in the crowd with his head lowered, staring at the time on his phone. The overdue warning lit up, and his brow tightened even more. Carrying several meals, he hurried through the dense crowd. Night fell, and the city's neon lights slowly began to glow. The stream of traffic was like a river with no visible end, trapping him in the middle. Buses, taxis, and e-bikes brushed past him one after another. Rain struck his helmet, and his breathing grew heavier and heavier. But the orders never stopped, and neither could he. The late-night food stalls were still lit, and the street was quieter than it had been during the day. Master Zhou pulled over by the roadside and looked down at the orders on his phone. It was already after 11 at night, yet the system kept assigning new deliveries. Leaning against the wall, he could only hurry through a few bites of cold food. Halfway through eating, the alert on his phone suddenly rang again. He put down the unfinished meal, put his helmet back on, and set off again. Back at the station, the other riders had already clocked out and gone home one after another. But Master Zhao was still out on the street, delivering the last few orders of the night. In the distance, the city lights blazed brightly, yet his figure looked especially lonely. The road was long in the dead of night, yet only that little taillight kept him company. The rain deep into the night grew heavier and heavier, yet Master Zhao was still rushing to finish the last few orders. Reminder after reminder kept popping up on his phone, but he was almost at his limit. In the night traffic under the rain, he gripped the handlebars tightly, breathing harder and harder. Then suddenly, his vision went black, and both he and the scooter collapsed onto the icy road. Nearby riders heard the commotion and rushed toward him at once. Some supported him, while others hurriedly called for an ambulance. The ambulance arrived quickly, but everyone's heart was hanging in suspense. As dawn approached, the station received the news no one wanted to hear. Everyone stared at their phones in silence, unable to believe that the Order King was really gone. In the end, all that remained were his Shanxi delivery uniform, helmet, and delivery box, lying quietly where they were left. On the morning after the rain, his helmet, uniform, and white chrysanthemums were placed at the entrance of the station. The riders lowered their heads and silently bid farewell to the Order King. The news quickly spread online, and for the first time many people saw the weight behind this job. Comment after comment poured in, and people began to ask, how should riders really be protected? Newspapers also ran the story, and the death of the Order King drew public attention. Meetings were held at the station, and for the first time everyone seriously discussed rest, insurance, and working hours. New safety rules were posted up. Safety comes first, and life matters more than being on time. The platform, rider representatives, and all sides of society sat down together and began to push for change. A more complete system of protections was gradually written into the rules and into people's hopes. The city still kept moving, but people finally understood that behind every on-time delivery is a person struggling to make a living.